Let's see what it'll do.
Ready to rock this, bro?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, it looks good. I likes it. I likes it a lot. Tunnel round. Why didn't I do this years ago? It just takes a car that's kind of cool looking and just makes it awesome. All right. So, engine is now set in. And now I've got to do all the little tedious things to hook it all up and get it assembled. I'm still waiting on lifters. Yes. So the intake's not bolted on, the valley pan's not glued on, valve covers are just sitting there, and the rockers aren't on, and the distributor's not in, or it's in, but it's just there to seal a hole. There's no point in putting that in when I still got to prime the engine. So I got to run all my plumbing for the oil cooler and all that. So that's the reason I want to prime the engines. When I get all my plumbing hooked up, then I'm going to prime the engine, pump oil through everything, get it all filled up, so that way when I do fire the engine, it's not going to run for like 15 seconds with zero oil pressure. So I'm so glad I actually repainted the engine and cleared it. It just glistens in the sunlight. It makes the rest of the shitty engine bay not even noticeable because your eyes just go right to this. It's gonna look so awesome coming down the road and you see carburetors and air cleaner and awesomeness through the rearview mirror staring back at you. Be intimidating. Should have named the car the Intimidator. Alright, well, I'll go ahead and start fangling with getting the headers hooked up, the carb linkage, so I get the radiator back in it, my oil cooler system. Alright, header gasket time. So this is what was on Smurf before, these copper gaskets. You can see they leaked. All the black areas is leakage, which that's no buenos. So I've got these on a few other engines. These are Rimflex gaskets. Right, here you go. Rimflex. They work pretty good. They seal good, but I wouldn't recommend them on like real high horsepower engines or something that's boosted, like or turbo I mean, because they just don't seem to hold up on the turbo stuff. A lot of heat. So that's just what I've experienced. Maybe there's guys that run these on turbo stuff and they work good, but I've tried it on turbos, no buenos. What works on turbo betters is the copper stuff. So, but since this is a naturally aspirated, roughly 6-something horsepower motor, these will be perfect and seal good. All right, slap these suckers in there. Today, gonna be doing some plumbing. Luckily, the guys at SoCal Speed Shop, my buddy Adam, hooked me up with some fittings, and they weren't free, but at least I get the homie hookup price. And then I need to plumb all the fuel system and the oil cooler system and the remote oil filter. Gonna try and use as much of the fittings as I can from the old setup, because this stuff ain't cheap, man. Like, you plumb up a car, like we'll just pick one. Holy crap, I paid $20 for that? I never even looked at the prices. I just realized, I just told them what I needed. Yeah, so with my discount, maybe I paid $17. So, wow, stuff is expensive nowadays. Like even one fitting for the carburetor, $11. I mean, I love Holley carburetors, but have you tried to buy a needle and seat lately? A needle and seat is $28 for a pair of needle and seats. I mean, that is ridiculous. $28. So at least the carburetors are cheap. So carburetors are cheap, it's just the parts are expensive. So as long as you never let your carburetor sit and go to crap, you'll be good. I'm gonna go ahead and start plumbing. Nothing super exciting, cutting hose, measuring, screwing together stuff. So I'll just do some highlights for you guys here and there. All right, well, it's already hot. And when I turn this thing on, it's gonna get windy and noisy. But I'll be cool. Alrighty, all my tranny lines are done. They're all tucked. Actually, I wouldn't even, no, they're not really tucked. I kind of like the mechanical looks of everything. So I could have tucked them all hidden and everything, but I don't know. I kind of like the whole mechanicalness of the old school setup. You know, when everything's like resto modded and modern, and all you see is a big plastic cover over an engine, and everybody always tucks all the wiring and everything. It just, I don't know. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. I'm cool with seeing the mechanicals of how everything works on a car. So now that that's all done, I got my sensor hooked up. Actually, it's not a sensor, it's a switch. So this switch is a temp switch, and that's what turns the fan on. So, and that's I used aluminum line to also help with cooling. So that'll come down, goes to the switch, does a loop-de-loop, comes up, goes through the cooler, back down, over, up, and then it comes over, and they both go through the core support. All right, I was allowed to say that. So now that I finally got my lifters, we can go ahead and finish assembly of the top end of this engine. These are some bad mofos right here. They better be for how much money they were. These are bushed solid roller lifters from Iski. I was recommended to get these because I'm going to daily drive this thing, and I'm going to thrash on it, and I'm going to do long distance drives with it. So I was recommended by Freiburger to buy those lifters. They're expensive, but I don't want to have to experience things that those guys have already experienced. So I took their advice, bought them. Now I can slam this thing together. So all this is going to come off, so then I can put pieces in and then drop it all back on for the final assembly. I got my adjustable push rod in there. It's adjusted to length. I've set it to where I got my valve lash at 16 thousandths on the intake, which is what the cam recommended, and that is good. So if I can get a push rod that length, that would be perfect, because I also have all the thread engagement I can get. I got just the tip of the threads showing at the bottom of the rocker, so I have no unused threads on the adjuster bolt, so that would be perfect. All right. Now to make a phone call to Doug Schneider, see if he's got some push rods, or I gotta order them. Well, that's it for that. All right, it's the next day. Cost me more money, Smurf did. So, turns out I can't find any push rods in stock anywhere in the country right now. I tried Jegs, I tried Summit, I tried Mancini Racing. I was just trying to find those lifters that you can cut to length and then press the end caps on, but none. No one's got them. So then, kind of my last resort was, but you know, it's a good resort, is Smith Brothers. So they're a little pricey, but it's good shit. So I called them up this morning. I got a set of I got a set of push rods coming. $230 later. Man, this car is like, I can't even say nickel and diming me apart, because $230 is not exactly nickel and dime. $2,200 cylinder is not exactly a dime. You know, that tunnel ram intake's not exactly a nickel. $1,300 for a set of bushed roller lifters, not exactly a penny. So that's not including all the rest of stuff. Every single dollar and more that I made on doing General Mayhem has went back into this car. So, in meaning, whatever that meant. What I'm doing right now is finishing up the whole tunnel ram setup. So I finished the valley pan. I kind of had to port match the valley pan to the cylinder heads. Then I glued the gaskets to the intake manifold, trimmed the gaskets. Now the intake's bolted down just with the 4 bolts in the middle. And because I'm working on tunnel ram linkage and carburetors, so I robbed all the choke guts out of the brawler, because chokes are for sissies that live in Antarctica. So now I need to rebuild the other carburetor, because at this point I need to bolt carburetors to the intake. So get the carburetors bolted to the intake, then I can finish the linkage. You're not going to be missing a whole lot. Alright, here's one problem. The old carburetor's got air bleed holes drilled into the butterflies, which I did that because this carburetor used to be on the General Lee, and I needed that extra airflow. That way I can keep the transition slot in the correct spot position that I wanted it to be. The new carburetor has no holes. So I'm gonna go ahead and take up these holes. So then, because with two carburetors, I'm pretty sure I can just crack the rear butterflies on both enough to match the airflow that I really need. So
100 horsepower. So now we're going to go on the 3-inch. Hopefully it'll freeze that.
oh, it's another day in the neighborhood. Yeah, if you're from my generation, you watched Mr. Rogers before. Alright, so I've got some progress done. I had to change the fuel system a little bit to make room for coil and whatnot. And I know you're not supposed to have the coil close to the fuel system, but in all reality, these cars back in the day, the coil was right next to the carburetor anyway. So I don't really care. And I got better fuel system, so. And it looks good right there. The wires are already there, so done. I got my throttle linkage done for the tunnel ram. Let's see, what else did we get? We got a bunch of little stuff done. So I got rid of the battery box. I made a ground cable. All the plumbing is done. Let's see, I started mounting a bulkhead adapter so I can run my battery cable through the firewall. Because yes, I'm putting a battery in the back. Because look how much better it looks under here with no wires and no battery. Doesn't it look so much cleaner everywhere? So, yep, that's going in the back. So I started pulling the interior up a little bit so I can run the cable back there. All right. Yep, I'm gonna go ahead and put the battery right there. And I will give you one piece of advice. So this is 0 gauge welding cable. This is good shit. This works much better than your typical battery cable. And I have tried that lightweight, actually I'll show you. I have tried that lightweight racing cable. Because you know, it's kind of enticing because it's all like super lightweight. Like this whole thing here is super freaking lightweight. I had that in patina. It wouldn't even crank the car over. It was like rrr, 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 on a fully charged battery. So after diagnosing and figuring out that under load, that lightweight cable can't handle the current, so then I replaced it with 0 gauge welding cable. Oh, it fires right up, cranks beautifully. So yeah, I won't skimp or go lightweight on battery cable anymore. I just got the plugs in it, except I have one issue. I have one plug right here because these are angle plugs on these cylinder heads now. So you see how the plugs are angled in the cylinder head? Well, before they were straight. And I have no issue with any of them. This one here is a little tight, number, what is that, 8? But it's not, that one's not a big issue. The issue I have is number 2. Because this pipe angles down and backwards, it's right in the way of the spark plug. Like the spark plug's on there, but I'm gonna have to do some fancy schmancy dimpling and some hammering. I'll show you right here. Okay, yeah, you can see it right there. So that is like only a 1/16 of an inch away from the header, the tip of the electrode, or the tip of the spark plug. So I gotta fix that. That would be no buenos. So today I'm gonna make plug wires, maybe get the exhaust on it. I gotta change the transmission pan because that's a deep sump steel pan. I have a nice finned aluminum pan on the old transmission, so I'm gonna swap that out. Cooler's better. All right, let me get out of here. So much work.
Same kind of higher RPM because a given horsepower is a given amount of air displacement which you gain either through cylinder. Because kind of a higher RPM because it's small, do the same can and the same air. The guy who doesn't care anymore other than Bush and taking in Bush I buy. I'm just entertained. But it won't be entertaining the guy who really loves building engines and wants to understand how they work and change things. That was totally I know. Even you've seen it all. You've never seen this? Maybe we've done some cool stuff with varying results. But if you're little factory thing parts, everything is same day. Not same day. Okay. All right, this is the first. Fire it up.
Heck yeah, the hood's off of it. I got to get ready to cut a big old hole. Just waiting for my air cleaners to show up so that way I can make a scoop for it. Because I'm gonna make like a mini cowl off the original, or part of the hood where the scallop is at. I'm gonna cut along the scallop right in the middle. And I'm gonna kick that up to where it's like level with the top of the carburetor, so it'll be like kind of like a ram air into the scoop. Anyway, oh, you're probably wondering why I have this in my hand. This is going to be my torque strap, old sway bar mount, or link. I'm going to use it, I'm going to make a bracket so it'll come off the motor mount down to the K-frame, and that'll be my nice tight little K-frame mount. So, I just got to make a little bracket. Actually, I got to make two brackets. One L bracket and another L bracket. So, simple enough. But, yeah, I just have stock motor mounts on this thing. It has a little bit of wiggle to it. And I imagine this thing, when it gets all torqued up and revving and smoking tire and awesomeness, that it is going to rip those motor mounts. So, with the help of this doohickey, that will help keep the engine in check and all that torque tamed down to the body. All right, time to make some brackets. Yeah, I know, I need a haircut. I just haven't had time to do it yet. I got my bracket cut out. So this, I'm gonna go down in here with me and upside down. So that guy right there is going to sit just like that. So it's gonna sit right up against the K-frame. It's notched and cut out to butt right up against it. So I'm gonna go ahead and burn that right there. I already got my hole in it. So that's where part of the sway bar link, here it is, will attach to it. And all I gotta do is make a simple L bracket for the top motor mount, and good to go. Yeah, got all my plug wires done. Even got one air cleaner that showed up. Day by day, Smurf is getting closer. Still waiting on push rods, and I'm still waiting on one more air cleaner. After I get the other cleaner, then I can make my sheet metal scoop. It's gonna be old school looking. And then the hood is also off of it because we got to cut a big old hole in that thing. Anyways, I'm in the trunk of a Smurf. What I am doing here is we're adding a speaker. I just removed the original rear defrost. This thing still works. Look, it still has the original paint on for the numbers on it. This thing's actually in really good shape and it works, like I said. But I never need it. I'm in the desert. I never ever need that thing. I would rather replace it with a speaker, because that's actually what happens. Is you have your choice of, let me get up in there. You have your choice of a rear defrost or a speaker. So I'd rather have two speakers instead of one speaker and one rear defrost. So that's what I'm doing right now. And what I did yesterday is, since I had to pull the seat out to run the, oh yeah, I gotta show you this. So I put the battery in the trunk. I made a battery box, or not a box, but a little battery holder. So that's for my 21-pound battery. This was all made out of Home Depot stuff. So I just countersunk all the screws, cut it all up, shaped it, and made this out of Home Depot materials. Then ran my battery cables, but in order to run my battery cables, I had to pull out the back seat. I'll show you. And I didn't know that Smurf never had insulation under the back seat. So while the back seat was out of Smurf, look this up here, I went ahead and dynamated under the rear floor pan and insulated it. So now, hopefully Smurf will be a little quieter and a little cooler inside, because that is right where the mufflers are at. The mufflers are right on top of that sheet metal. So that's just heat radiating up into the car. All right, well, I'm gonna get back to mounting my speaker. And then after I do that, I'm gonna make the studs that I need for the air cleaners. So here we go right here. I've already got it marked out where I need to cut it. And then, hopefully, my push rods show up today. I think they're gonna show up today. So, if they show up today, this bitch might run. Hopefully it runs. Alright, well I'm gonna finish what I gotta do. Probably won't miss a whole lot underneath there. Basically just gonna be bolting a speaker up in there. I'll show you the aftermath. Alright, besides the tunnel ramp being my favorite part, this is my second favorite part. Making the old school vintage scoopage. So I got a piece of aluminum here. I wanted to do it in stainless, but I went down to the steel shop and they didn't have any scrap stainless because the cost of steel has gone up so high. It's like triple what it used to be, that when somebody orders sheets of sheet metal to cut to fit the length or whatever, they're no longer leaving the leftover pieces, they're taking everything, because it was going to be $400 for a 4x8 sheet of stainless that I wanted to use to make the scoop. And I was like, ugh. No. So I slipped the guy 20 bucks and got this piece of aluminum. So that'll work good enough for me. So granted, it's not going to be stainless, but you know, I can't polish the aluminum to look like, you know, to give it that mirrored finish. So I don't know, maybe I'll do that. Plus the aluminum, I want to put scallops in the side, because you know Chargers have scallops in the doors. I would like to use my bead roller and put a scallop in the side of the scoop and on the top, so that way it kind of mimics the Charger hood and the doors. But another thing I realized is my bead roller's not here. I let somebody borrow it and they've had it for like 2 weeks now and haven't brought it back. I'm gonna go ahead and get this all mapped out, get it cut out, so that way I can start making the awesome scoop. I want old school for this. I have the design in my head. I can't really like tell you what it's gonna look like, but it's in my head. So I'm gonna try and get it out of my head and onto the sheet metal. Aluminium. Aluminum. Yeah. Doesn't that just look bitchin'? And it's not even done yet. That's just mocked up on the car. You notice I put some scallops in it to kind of mimic the Charger scallops on both sides. There's still a bunch of work to do to this thing. I just finished welding the back on. I got my base plates riveted onto it. That's all aluminum, so I got the base plates on there. Air cleaners are in. But I still got a lot of work I want to do to that thing. I actually kind of want to I'm thinking about cutting the back out and then putting some plexiglass that'll rivet or screw to the backside, so that way it'll kind of give me a little bit more visibility. I'm actually looking through the scoop. But what's more important right now is, bam! Push rods showed up. My Smith Brothers push rods, custom ordered, just showed up. So now I can go ahead and install them in the engine, which is what I'm doing right now. Yeah, see, I'm gonna sand this whole thing down and kind of give it like a brushed look, and I'm debating if I leave the welds on there or if I grind them down. I don't know. I kind of like to see stuff. I kind of like to see welds. I don't know. I'm weird. I like to see fabrication and not something that's just all ground down and I don't know. Anyways, this is gonna be so awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and get all my push rods shoved into Smurf's solid roller motor, so that way I can go and I can fire this thing up today. Now that I got the push rods, I can fire this sucker up. Yay. All right, Get the push rods in, get my Harlem Shark rockers back on. Smurfs alive! I didn't cheat you out of anything though. All I did so far is I fired it up just to check the training fluid. I did not want to run the transmission dry while I was doing all my tuning and all that crap and getting the engine dialed in. No, so I just fired it up, checked, or filled the training up with fluid, or filled the training up with fluid, fired it up, and then just topped it off to where it needed to be, just so I'm safe with the transmission. That's all I have done. I haven't turned a single screw, nut, bolt, distributor, nothing. I fired it up, and the timing was close enough to where it ran. So that's all I did was pump fluid in it. All right, so now I've got my vacuum gauge. We've got our O2 sensor right there. We got our timing light. We got some tools laid out here, and I have this chingadera right here, which this will allow me to calibrate both carburetors to make sure they're both getting the even amount of air drawn through them. Now, I didn't come up with this. I saw somebody else do this. So all I do is I'll screw this dial here, get this little red, I don't know, indicator in the middle of its travel, and then I just drop it from carburetor to carburetor and sync the amount of airflow that each carburetor is sucking. That way both carburetors are working evenly, and really all that does is the idle and the transition circuit. As for like cruising and wide open, or as for like a half throttle and wide open, it doesn't really do a whole lot. Because you're moving so much massive amounts of air that little bit of sinking doesn't really do shit. But this will be great for drivability because it's idle and low speed cruising, which is mostly what you do in the city, which is what I am stuck in. So until I can get out of this city, that will come in handy. All right, so I got myself a little jumper wire here that I will use to fire it up in case I need to, if it dies or whatnot. We got all our fluids in it, we got oil in it, the coolant's topped off. Nothing left to do but fire this little girl up. Ah, Smurf, I love thee. Tunnel rams are freaking awesome. can read your minds. And you're probably thinking, why the hell did he do that? I shall answer you. Because the drivetrain in a Mopar sits 1.5 inches off center. See? So that's actually the center line of Mopar drivetrain, not the center of the hood. Well, what I want to do with this hood is I kind of want to make a mini cowl by pulling this piece up and directing air right into the scoop, and then fill in the sides so that way it kind of has like a little ram air into the scoop. But in order to do that and have it kind of somewhat symmetrical looking, I need to take this piece here and slide it over, making this scallop smaller, so that way the scoop actually comes through inside of the scallops. Not like this is where the scoop would have been coming through. That's actually the side of the scoop. So that would have come through the inside of the scallop, while this one would have been in the middle of the scallop. So trying to make it somewhat look symmetrical and less goofy. So I'm making it a tiny bit goofy by one scallop bigger than the other, but you won't really notice it off glance, I don't think. But you would notice a big hole in the hood with one scallop cut open and one scallop not. So trying to make it somewhat symmetrical. I shall show you. Got the boost caboose here with a toy bow. See, if we lookies over here and you kind of look at the center of the grill versus where the engine's at, yeah. See, now some of you guys are probably thinking, oh, just build an offset air cleaner. That won't work because the carburetors are actually above the hood, so that won't work. What are you doing over there, Lightning? Come on. Lightning bug. Get your booty over here. We don't poop in the neighbor's yard. Alright. So I'm gonna finish working on this hood and make it less goofy than it would have been. Alright. Peeps. There's an event coming up September 10th and 11th. It is Matt's Muscle Cars of the Strip. You need to be there with your jalopy, your hoopty, your junker, because that's what I'm bringing. I'm not bringing anything fancy, but and you don't have to bring something fancy to get into the show. There's gonna be car show, drag racing. There's the barn finds, which I'm gonna have one of my own cars in the barn find. I'm gonna have my triple black 6.9 RT 4-speed Charger in the barn find area, but mostly I'm bringing the fun. I'm bringing Smurf, Patina. I might even bring that hunker out there, Minty. But the reason I'm bringing the junkers is for the Autocross. Yes, they have all the other racing, but the Autocross is where it's at. Because you can have a slow car and nobody cares the drag strip. You're just waiting for you to finish your 20-second lap. But if you take it to the Autocross and you fling that sucker around, smoke billowing out of the tires, you're spinning out, sliding sideways and causing all kinds of havoc, people will be cheering for you when you cross that line. So that's why I'm going there. Nobody will remember the fastest car, but they will remember the most memorable car that makes a lap around that Autocross track. So bring your hoopties, because I'm bringing mine. It will be fun.
Take that back end lag on that charger, boy. Man, that's his front part. Now watch it right here in the center. Watch it. Yeah, drip it. Get it. Just get it. Get it. Grip it. Yeah, what the hell? Keep going. There you go. That's the right, baby. Yeah.
Go Cones!
Right? And I know it's just doing donuts because the lines that you see out there on the course, that's flour. And what do you use flour for?
Feels so much better than it did last night. Night, yeah, it's way better. That's fucking cool, man. Cool. I dig it.
More betters.
Oh hell yeah.